sir, audible.
I'm on a better bandwidth and I think I can afford now. Fine. I'm a full bandwidth now. Is my slide visible?
Not yet.
For 49 or 171.
Now it is
I'm
visible.
on full bandwidth, a better bandwidth. Yeah, I'm on full bandwidth now. I can afford to go a little faster. So this is 49 or 171. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
And I can even have it a projected way. So I will make it a little larger also. I can afford it now. I have a larger bandwidth now. Is my slide visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I will quickly go through. We were discussing about the layout synthesis. I am at slide 1757, 17. So what I'm discussing here is the gate netlist can always be converted into layout by the computer, right? So that is what we need to take further. So let me come back to the DFG, RTL synthesis. I am at RTL synthesis again. And what I'm discussing here is how can we have a trade-off so that our circuit, which is synthesized, I'm at RTL synthesis, not logic synthesis, not physical synthesis. I'm restarting RTL synthesis. Part of it is taken by Amit. What I'm indicating here is how do we go about exploration. Optimization is about exploration. You explore various options of replacing your resources and find out how is the performance. So this is resources, right? The resources are usually area. Resources are area. So what is area? Area is how many units you are using. So if I'm using, instead of one ALU, I'm using two LUs. And instead of using one multiplier, I'm using two multipliers. What is the advantage? The model is still same data flow graph. A computer will change resource to two multipliers and two ALUs. Is that okay? Two multipliers and two ALUs, right? And then we'll see what is the change. Can we finish the computation in a lesser time? With one multiplier, one ALU, yesterday you would have seen it may take about maybe the 7 units of steps or something, right? So I can plot it now. The area here is corresponding to two multiplier and two ALUs, or the other extreme, another extreme is one multiplier, one ALU. With one multiplier, one ALU, I have to consume 7 units of time. It's called latency. Number of steps required to complete the computation, one computation. If I use two multiplier, two ALUs, I can finish faster, only in 4 steps. So definitely two multiplier, two ALUs are better for performance, but they are bad for area. The cost will be higher. The cost will be higher. So their area is 13, and with 1 and 1, the area is 7. So the point is, I am getting almost 7 upon 4 speed up. 7 upon 4 speed up, time ratio, right? It is almost twice. The speed becomes twice, but my area also becomes twice. The area is 13 by 7, almost twice, right? This is trade-off. Trade-off means if I'm not spending, I'm spending lesser area, I will need to devote more time for computation. But if you want to increase the computation speed, you want to finish in lesser and lesser time, then you have to spend money. Your area will be larger. That's the optimization, which is integral part of the computer based transformation. The synthesis is transformation. The optimization is integral part of synthesis. It is never away from that. We will not discuss optimization no further, but presume that a computer has the algorithm to explore various options and come out with a better option. Transformation will be done definitely from the DFG to RTL, right? For logic, what is the exploration? So let me come back. Can you imagine we have a AND gate to implement, which is of 4 inputs. The disadvantage of 4 input AND gate or NAND gate is it will have lot of capacitance, right? Input side that way. And for any larger fan-in and higher side gate, there will be a dense MOS for 4 input NAND gate, AND gate or NAND gate. If I have an option, what I do, I will break this, not use it, I will explore. Presuming that I have only 2 input NAND gate. So the left side is such that I do not have components available. I have only one type of component available, which is 2 input AND gate. So I can go with this option, 2 input AND gate, or I can go with this option. Now what's the difference? Difference is for this kind of a structure, lower one, my signal has to pass through 3 gates, right? So it is 3 gate delay, TG. And here upside, the gate maximum delay is only 2 TG. So if you say there is no much difference, you presume that we have about 10 inputs, 10 input AND gate. It is infeasible. You cannot make it. It is too large area. In that case of 10, the gate required here will be some layered one, and 9 TG gate delay will be required. But if you go for 10 or 16 here, this will be 15. I'm changing my input. I'm changing my exploration. I'm saying this is 16 input AND gate. For 16 input AND gate, this will require 15 TG, 15 layers of gates to pass through. Whereas the upside will require only 4 layers to pass through. Can you make it up? Can you try? For 16 gate implementation using this parallel implementation. So all 16 input will be from left side. How many gates I require immediately? 8 gates. 8 gates to consume 16 inputs. For 8 gates, outputs will be 8. I further require 4 more gates. Then further 2 more gates. And lastly 1 gate. So how many levels I have to pass through? 4 levels. This 4 is actually log of 16. So number of levels L required will be, in upper side will be log of number of inputs, right? Log of number of inputs. I think I can go to my drawing board. If it is not, it is getting clumsy. So let me change my share. Just hold on for 1 minute. Is my board visible to you, green board?
Yes, sir.
So let us take the AND gate, which is of 16 inputs. This is the requirement. The option is I go with all parallel implementation. So I will have to have such 8 gates. Is it okay? Then I have another 8 outputs now. So I further needs about 4 more gates. And these are 4 outputs. So I need 2 more gates. And then lastly 1 gate. Right? So how many gates I'm getting here? This is n by 2, this is n by 4, and so on and so forth up to 1. This is geometric series. If I sum it up, the summation would be still n minus 1 gates. Still n minus 1 gates. But how many levels I have passed through? This is n by 2, n by 4, and this lastly, this would be called n upon 2 to power n, which is 1. And this will give me value of m. Can you compute? M is mth level. So m will be log of n. Right? M is log of n. What is m? M here is number of levels. This is level 1, level 2, and this is mth level, where I am getting this value. So delay is m levels, m delay, which is log of n. So for 16 inputs, my delay is only 4 gates, right? But if I implement it another way, I have 2 inputs here. The third input goes to the next gate. Fourth input goes to the next gate. The fifth goes into the next gate, and so on and so forth up to the 16th input. I'm still using number 1, 2 up to 15. I'm still using n minus 1 gates. Is that okay? I'm still using n minus 1 gates. But the delay is too large. Delay is also n minus 1. This is gate 1, this is gate 2, this is gate 1, gate 2, gate 3, and we have to pass through this. So delay also is n minus 1 gates. Whereas upper side, for the first circuit, the delay was only m number of levels. So we can compare these two, right? The number of required gates are same. Definitely I will not go for the lower option because my area is same, number of gates required are same. So upper side circuit is faster. That exploration computer can do. We can make it capable of doing such evaluations. This happens during the logic synthesis. This is called optimization, which we are not going to discuss further now. Is that okay? I am coming back to my slides. Are they visible? 18th. Right? So we can still draw a graph. I hope my slides are visible. I am as a logic synthesis, the same gate structure. So I can say that my delay is lower or higher, and my area is lower and higher. I can say that, right? So this explosion happens. I am not going into detail of this. I'm just indicating there is a optimization involved, inbuilt into the synthesis. That's all I want to say, nothing else. This is overall view of synthesis. Come back again, the design flow. So we have the first one, the models, right? There are models. Then we have the physical entity, the architecture here. So we start with the behavior kind of thing, describe it in a model. We describe it in the model and maybe the HDL, and we achieve the hardware here, architecture. Then architecture we describe here, again back, and convert that into the logic, right? And the third will be physical level. So I'm just skipping this. You can go through at your own leisure time. So this is a graph showing you for architecture level synthesis what is involved, right? This involves the DFG scheduled, DFG bound, then it is converted into RTL here. A DFG gets converted into RTL, the register connections, the ALU connections, and we replace those registers and ALUs in the gate, right? So we have a sequential circuit that is called logic level synthesis. All that we achieve here is converted into gate, sequential or logical, fine. Then we have a combinational synthesis also, right? Once this is over, logic level synthesis, the last step is there, which we are not going to discuss, but it is there, integral part of it, fine. the integral part of it. It is if I am having gates and gates and gates and gates here at this step, these gates I have to replace it by layout, and I must have those layouts stored somewhere, or I have to design it. But I cannot design every time all the layouts. I have to reuse the layouts. So I would have a store. That store is called library. So in my library, I will have pre-built layout for all small gates. Like for 2 input AND gate, I will have a layout. For 2 input or NOR gate, I may have a layout, right? For even larger circuit, I may have a layout. For one flip-flop, I may have a layout. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
So I will store all these layouts of basic gates and the higher group of gates to the extent possible in my library. And at this level, when I am doing logic synthesis, they are not replaced by layouts. So that layout, replacing them all gates or group of gates one by one by the layouts, looking at the library, is called library binding. We still have gates. After this step, reaching to this step, I still have gates. The only point is I am now replacing them by gates for which layouts are available. Later on, I can translate that to layout also further. But at my logic level, I have another gate netlist where all gates are identified by their corresponding layout. That's called the netlist here, gate netlist here is called raw netlist. It is here, it is called technology mapped gate netlist. There is a difference. Same gate numbers are there, identical gates are there in the two levels, but in the later technology mapped layout, I have all the gates identified as their layouts available. If for some of them layout is not available, you have to get down and design your own layout. Am I clear? So I will be here only today. I am taking off now. I am coming to the meaningful discussion now. I will be here only sequential synthesis or combinational synthesis. That's all. And I am get going. I will just look at the models basically. Models basically here. Models for logic representation and how to translate them into meaningful kind of thing. So RTL to logic synthesis is the main discussion today. The model of logic. What are the model of logic? Let us come to that. I'm skipping all this. What is the logic model? A logic combination logic model, you know. It is your truth table, right? You know truth table for a logic function. How you represent a logic function? Truth table. Next, by K-map. You can represent K-map. Or you can even take a Quine-McCluskey kind of a table representation. We'll see that also. Quine-McCluskey truth table. Or table, not truth table. We'll discuss another representation, graph, which we haven't discussed till today. No? Many of you may know the graph is very well accepted by the computer. That's very good. So we'll discuss about another representation of the function by binary decision diagram. Is that okay? This is the target today for whatever discussion we are going to have. Meanwhile, we'll go through many mathematical representations, some graphs and that kind of thing. But you should remember what is the outcome now today before you leave me. That you should be able to represent a function by binary decision diagram. That's all. And if it is a Quine-McCluskey, how to optimize the function. That's all. The next 2 steps. I have to optimize my function. What is optimization? You have learned till now. It is same function to be realized using little less number of gates, little less amount of logic. Area is minimized. That's all. So that is exactly K-map is doing for you. Right? We'll come to that. Meanwhile, let us go through. Let us go through what lies on the slide. I am removing my markings. This slide says set theory. Quickly. Set theory says there is a set of elements, capital S. The cardinality is number of elements in S. You could find the subset of S. How many total subset of S will exist? 2 to the power number of elements in S. Those many subsets exist, starting from null to the set itself. Please revise. And we could operate the different sets by intersection, union, and so on and so forth. What is Cartesian product? If we have two sets, S1 and S2, what is the Cartesian product of two sets? That we have to take one element from S1, X, another element from S2, Y, and make all pairs. How many such pairs we can make? This is called Cartesian product. This is denoted here. Denoted here. So Cartesian product will be another set which will have number of elements equal to multiplication of two sets. Number of elements here, N1, multiplied by number of elements here in S2. Those many elements will be there in Z, right? Another thing I'm indicating here is universal quantifier and existential quantifier. It simply says that given a set, if anything is true for all the elements, I will indicate mathematically by this symbol. So if I say all the elements X, where X is member of S, will you be able to describe this in English? This is notation. This says for all values of X, for every X, such that X is member of S. So what does it indicate? All the member of S, right? Mathematically. Existential quantifier. If I say there exists at least one element. So this existential quantifier says it is at least applicable for one element or more, but it is applicable to at least one element, right? And the same meaning, such that X is member of S. Is it okay? So if you remember them, it's okay. I will repeat it again when they are being used next time. Okay. So I'm skipping all that. Graph. What is graph? Graph is set of or superset of set of vertices and set of edges. Is that okay? I will try to write as small as possible. So a graph is a superset of vertices and edge sets. What is a vertex set? Vertex set is number of vertices, V1, V2, and up to Vn, n vertices. And what is the set of edges? Set of edges. An edge connects two vertices. So this is a set of edges. Vi and Vj are connected. This is one edge. And there will be so many edges, many edges, right? This is the way to represent an edge. Pair of two vertices is an edge, right? So graph is a set theoretic element also. You thought graph is a picture only. No, graph is a set theoretic element also. It is superset of two subsets or two sets, vertex set and edge set. If you want to represent this graph, which is now we have discussed as a set theoretic element, theoretically graph is this only. You want to visualize this as a graph, pictorial way, drawing it, then this is another version of that definition. But the basic definition of a graph is this only, no, set theoretic. So if you want to represent these vertices, you draw these small dots, one for one, V1 to Vn, and join them by these pairs. So each edge is now one line joining two vertices. Each circle is now a vertex. So this is the graph pictorial representation of the graph. But research point of view, graph is actually a set theoretic element. Graph could be directed, graph could be undirected. If edge has no direction in the picture, if you see edge has no direction, then this is undirected graph. If edge has a direction, then this becomes a directed graph, right? A hypergraph is where an edge connects more than two vertices. So if I have to draw this, I have to connect three vertices. I will say this is an edge which connects more than two vertices, three vertices. Is it okay? Okay, let's go ahead. I'm at slide 22. The left side is an undirected graph. The right side is a directed graph version. Is that okay? The right side graph is a directed graph and it's a cycle. there is a cycle existing. In a DFG data flow graph, there is no cycle. So a data flow graph, I am fictiously presuming that you can imagine a data flow graph. The data flow graph is actually a directed acyclic graph. It has no cycles. So this graph cannot represent a DFG data flow graph because it has cycles. Where is cycle? If I start from this vertex, right, I can go here, I can go here and come back to this. There is a cycle. So this is a directed graph, but it has cycles. So it is not suitable for DFG, but it's suitable for something else. Fine, doesn't matter, right? How many vertices are there? Please label. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You write all vertices here, V1 to V8. How many edges? A, B, C, and label, right? So you have about 12 edges there, 12 edges there, right? So you can describe them in a set theoretic way also, V and E. Is it okay? Let me go ahead. What is a loop? The loop is a simple edge. I'm going back. A loop is a simple edge. It starts from the same vertex, ends on the same vertex. So what I have just drawn is a loop. I am slide number 22. I hope it is visible. So I have just drawn a loop. A loop is a single edge starting from the same vertex, ending at the same vertex. If there is a path from one vertex to other vertices, and we can come back to the same vertex, it is called cycle. This is called loop, right? And if you want to have more of them, walk, trail, and path. The walk is if you go through the vertices, right, and come back to the vertex and again traverse it, it's a walk. Trail is I do not repeat any vertex. So this is not a trail. And path is very pure. No vertex, no edges repeated from the input side to output side. Is it okay? A tree is a set of edges such that all vertices are connected. A tree is subset of edges such that all vertices are connected. A cycle is a subset of vertices and edges such that we start from the same vertex and end at the same vertex, right? So this you can look at the graph books and do it. A subgraph is a small part of a graph. The subgraph will have a vertex set and edge set such that a vertex set is contained in the larger vertex set. The edge set is contained in the larger edge set. This is subgraph. A clique is a spatial subgraph such that each vertex is connected to every other vertex. Did you get it? A clique is a subgraph. Each vertex is directly connected to the other vertex by one edge. So how many edges will be there for a clique? How many edges will be there? So we'll just do this click. We'll just do this click little later. What is a path? If I start from this, what is a path? Is there any path from this vertex to, let us say, this vertex? I'm shading them differently. So this is a source vertex, this is a target vertex. Is there a path? Path means it should not repeat any edges and vertices and reach there. So if I start from here, take this direction, take this direction, take this direction and reach here. So I have a path, yes. There is no edge repeated, there is no vertex repeated. So this is a path. This is a path, right? What is a tree here? Tree in the left side. If I choose this edge, these two vertices are connected. If I choose this edge, these two are connected. If I choose this edge, these two are connected. If I choose this, the fourth vertex is connected, right? Or fifth vertex. If I choose this edge, my sixth vertex is connected. Seventh vertex connected. Eighth vertex connected. Do you see how many edges I have chosen? The vertices are 8. Number of vertices here is 8. And how many number of edges I have chosen? Only 7. The tree edges are only 7, one less than the vertex, right? There is no cycle at all. This subset of edges such that there is a path from every vertex to every other vertex is called a tree. Tree. Cycle you can go. Cut set I am removing. What is a click? What is a click? Click is a subgraph. If I have this left side graph, I'm trying to find out a click. I will find out a subgraph, small graph, such that every vertex is connected to every other vertex directly. So if you look at this, I can choose the size 3 graph, right? So I have 3 vertices here. It's a subgraph, and one is connected to 2 directly, one is connected to 3 directly, and 2 is connected to 3 directly. So this is a click now. Click is a subgraph such that the vertices are connected together. So what is a size 4 click? It is not existing in this graph. Size 4 click is not existing in this graph. How can I make it? Had there been a connection here, this graph would have been size 4 click. Do you understand? Do you understand? Fine. So we go ahead now and we leave out these numbers can compute: click number, click cover number, and chromatic number. I will just discuss one, chromatic number. For a given graph, if I color each vertex by a different color, if its all neighbors are chosen with some color, then that will be a chromatic number. I go back. Let us color this graph, right? Let us color this graph. What is the coloring? If I color this is color 1. Now, any other vertices which are connected to this cannot be colored by the same color. So I will have another color here, right? And another color here, because I already have colored this, and these are neighbors. So neighbors should have different colors. So this is color 2, color 3, color 4. Now, what do I choose for this vertex? It is connected to this C3, I cannot have C3. Connected to C2, I cannot have C2. Connected to C1, I cannot have it, but I can have C4 here. If you remember, this is not connected to this vertex. So I can repeat C4 here. For this vertex, it is connected to C4 only, so I can use C1 here. For this vertex, it is connected to C1 and C4 color. I can choose C2 here. So for this whole graph of 8 vertices, I am able to label the vertices by 4 colors only, right? So its chromatic number is 4. Maximum number required colors are 4 only for this graph. This is called chromatic number, right? You can do other kind of things by yourself, right? So I have done this exercise for you and shown you a few more things. Fine, let us come to logic synthesis very quickly, right? You want to take a break for computation? You can do it. Let us do it. Some example. Please get down. You can take your books, copies, and do it. For a given graph on the left hand side, what is a click number? Sure, you can collect by 3. Try it. Now I come to independent set number. Independent set number is number of vertices which are not connected at all among themselves. It's a reverse definition. Click means they are connected to each other directly. Independent set is a subset of vertices such that they have no connection among themselves at all, right? So if I take this vertex, I have to drop these vertices because they are connected. But I can choose this one because this is not connected to my chosen vertex. I have to drop this vertex because this is connected to second vertex. Which one I should choose now? I can choose this one because it is not connected to 1, not connected to 2. right? I cannot choose this now because it's connected to 3. But I can certainly choose this one, 4th one. So if you choose these 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices which I marked, they are among themselves not connected at all. So if you separate them out, vertex 1, vertex 2, vertex 3, vertex 4, there will be no edges between them at all. This is called independent set. They are independent of each other. The size is still 4. Did you get it? Did you get it? Oh, I think click number is different. This is 3 should be. The chromatic number I left it to you, which I solved it. The 4 color. Independent set is 4. 4 independent number of vertices which are not connected. Number 4. Right. The click number is what is the maximum size of click? Earlier we found out these 3 are connected together. So click number is 3. So 3 of them we have computed. 4th one is if I keep identifying click after removing the first one, right? So apart from this, how many other clicks are there? I'm at this point. Click cover number. So how many clicks are there? So that the whole graph is covered. So I have covered the 3 vertices bottom way by 1 click. I can have the another click here, second click, and I have to cover these 2 vertices. So this will be the next click, size 2. Next click, size 2. How many clicks I have identified now? The lower one is 1. No, click 1, Q1. The upper side is click 2, Q2. Size 2, Q3. And size 2, Q4. So I have 4 clicks. So that whole graph is covered. So click cover number is 4. Are you get it? Have you get it? Have you got it? You will have quiz there from this question. So you can try it here now. You can try it here now. For this given graph, find out all 4 numbers. Find out all 4 numbers. Let us go for first click size. Click size. Right? Click number. What is the size you see here? Please reply in your maybe chat the answer. I'm asking max size click, maximum size click. Chug, you have answered. It says size 3, so I can say yes. A triangle is there. So click size is 3. 4 is not possible because this edge is absent. This edge is absent. So my maximum size click is 3 only. The vertex coloring, let us solve the vertex coloring. Vertex coloring. That will give us a chromatic number. What I'm doing here will be useful for your scheduling binding when Amit takes it up, or we might have taken up. So if you color a vertex by some color, you have to choose different colors for them. Fine. So if I choose this color 1, I have to choose a color 2 here. And I can choose the same color here, color 2. And color 3 here. So I need 3 colors, right? So chromatic number is 3, right? Chromatic number is 3. Answer chromatic number is 3. The click size is 3, right? Max click size is 3. Now the last question, what is the independent size? Maximum number of independent vertices. Maximum number of independent vertices. Yeah, Ila has answered correct way, like say number 3 or number 2, I don't know. Independent number of vertices. Only 4 vertices. You can choose any one of them, which is lightly connected. Lightly connected. So you cannot choose 1 and 3. First choose the 4. and 4 is connected to 1 and 3. So we cannot choose them. You have to choose 2 only. So there is one attempt. Had you chosen 1, the independent size would be 1 only. So maximum size is for independence, maximum size is 2. It is called a stability number. 2. You get me? Stability number is 2. Is it okay? I can take a halt here if you want to ask questions too, because now we'll go into the Boolean function gate level synthesis quickly, very quickly. 2 level synthesis. Much of the things you know. We have done variety of things here in the hope that they will be useful next time. There is no linking in what we are discussing for last 1 hour. There could be a link also, but not straightforward. So we have done some basics, brush ups, or some new things. Okay, so let's come back and remember your Boolean function implementation. How did you implement Boolean function implementation? You can unmute yourself and say something so that I can take something very quickly forward and not wait. Do you know Boolean function implementation as SOP or POS? Sum of products or product of sum? AND/OR or AND/OR or AND implementation, right? Amit has taken up that in PAL and CPLD, if you remember. It's same K-map implementation. You use K-map for optimization. You use K-map for optimization, right? So I ask you a question. Can you solve a K-map of input size 6? You draw a K-map for input variable 6. Input variable 6. How will you make a K-map? Don't look at slide, just answer something. For size 3 K-map, can you draw size 3 K-map? I can draw it here for you. Size 3 K-map is a function has 3 variables. Function has 3 variables, A, B, C. So how will you make K-map? If A is MSB, so A will take value 0 or 1. The BC will come here. So A will come here, BC will come at the top, and will have the 8 squares. All of you follow? This is a K-map for size 3. Can you draw K-map of size 6? Yeah. So K-map of size 6 is difficult to draw. You can visualize, but difficult to draw. So what is a size 4 K-map? Size 4 K-map. It is a square, no? 2 variables will come here and 2 variables will go there. I think all of you know it, no? So size 4 is this. If you take size 5, you repeat this same. I have another plane. For size 6, you have 2 more of them, one over the other. Now this is the limit of human visualization, and this certainly cannot be used for minimization. That's what I want to indicate, right? So for size 6, K-map is not easy to visualize. So we go for table method. What is table method? Cohen-McCluskey. Tabular method. So we'll immediately come down to that quickly. Before that, just Boolean function representations, many methods. Now for next discussion of half an hour or less than that, would be focused on Quine-Minkowski method. Is that okay? We'll be discussing Quine-Minkowski method, which might be applicable for n equal to 6 and above. How much? If we go to n10, the tabular method also becomes difficult. Right? So I will come to that limit. The tabular method is even, that tabular method also is difficult for any size greater than 10. So do you think that your Intel is giving you 128-bit chip next year? You can use tabular method there for combinational optimization? Certainly no, because your n will usually be 32. And tabular method, even if it is theoretically possible, human way it is not trackable. It is not trackable. For n equal to 10, how many minterms are there? How many minterms for n equal to 10? Yeah. 1000. Yeah. 1024. For 1024 minterms, the tabular method requires 11 rows in the first table. We need 11 rows in the first table. And subsequently, we need another many tables, multiple tables. What is tedious in 11 rows? Each row has to be compared with its neighbor, right? So if you have 11 rows, you have to pass through 10 rows definitely. With each row compared with 2 more rows, upper and lower row. Right, so 3 iterations for a row. Right, so how many rows are there? 10 rows. 3 iterations per row. What is the total? 30 reasons. One pair of row. So what lies in a row? What lies in a row? In one row, there will be minterms containing all the terms which has that many number of ones, right? So that could easily be some number, right? Let us say number 10. 10 minterms are there, right? Or it will be more than that. So if each row has 10 numbers, pair of row comparison equal to 100 term comparisons. Is that okay? If each row contains 10 minterms, a pair of row comparison means 10 minterms compared to each of the 10 minterms, 100 terms. So if you have 30 row comparisons, 30 pair of rows to be compared, each pair having approximately 100, you already have 3000 comparisons of minterms. Manual way, it's tedious, very lengthy. Computer can do it for you. So we should have CAD for Quine-Minkowski method, CAD for Quine-Minkowski method, implementable. That's all. And above that also, the computer also becomes tired beyond n equal to 20. Right? Okay, come back. Lighter things. How do you represent a Boolean function? I am writing a Boolean function here. Right? So there is a Boolean function here. This Boolean function is having terms, 3 terms. If this is 3 input function only, each of the term here contains all variables. Then it is called a min term. If a term, one term contains all variables, then it is possibly min term, right? I am saying min term because there is a ORing operation in between. What does it imply is f will be 1. F will be 1 true if any one of the term become 1. Right? So there's the OR function. Either the first term is 1 or second term is 1 or third term is 1 or many of them could be 1. Then function will be 1. So it's called build around 1. And the terms are called minterms. Minterms. And the representation is called product of sum. I'm sorry, sum of products. This is wrong here. This is called sum of products. I think my copy paste mistake. So this is SOP, right? And this is called DNF. Disjunction. So this ORing is called disjunction. Plus plus is ORing, Boolean function wise, and is called disjunction. Disjunction. So it is called disjunctive normalized form. If you have another representation where each term is different and between the terms there is a product, then it is called product of sum. All of you know it. Yeah, this is there. Right. So each term here is one term. Another term, another term. Between the term there is a ending, conjunction. So it is called conjunctive normalized form, and it is written in this fashion. Right? The pi is indicative of product, which is ending, nothing else. Right? This function is built around 0. It says that if any one of the term is 0, because they are multiplied, the whole product will become 0. So this is built around 1. Whenever f is 0, I have to identify how can f be made 0. If any one of the term is 0, how can that term will be 0? When a prime is 0, b is 0, c is 0. So how can a prime be 0? When a is 1. So if a is 1, b is 0, c is 0, this term will become 0. Right? So this term is max term. This term is max term. The function is built around 0. Built around 0. So if you look at the old representation, what you have been doing, this is a function, tabular form. It's called truth table. Is it? Yes, truth table. So if you build around the ones, right, and make a K-map, this is built around 1. Build around 1. So this is min-term representation. And how will you implement it? You will implement it by many AND gates, and all of them ORed actually. Right? Now two issues are here. If my number of zeros are less, only 3, and my number of ones are 5, I will require 5 gates here. Whereas if I could have built around 0, I would require only 3 gates. Isn't it? So I should build around 0. Looking at this, this is preferable in this case, so that you have 3 gates only at the input side. If you try your K-map, you still get the same 3 gates. Right? Still 3 gates. So I can minimize this equivalent way and use only 3 AND gates and OR gate here. So first issue solved. Optimization issue is solved. The other issue is feasibility. For n equal to 10, right? For n equal to 10, I don't know whether a blank slide is there. It's not there. So I will just try to undo all these markings. So on this slide, I have a function of size 3. N is 3 here, 3 inputs. If you presume n to be 10, this table will be of how much size? Yeah. Answer. How many rows will be there in a table? Rows in truth table. N equal to 10. How many rows? Okay, so 1000 rows. So you have to write about 1024 items here. Not much difficult. You can have pages after pages. You can write 20 lines, 20 rows in one page and consume over 50 pages and describe this truth table. It seems ridiculous, yes. But the issue is not this only. The main issue is, even if I can have 500 such gates, the main problem is here now. What is the size of my OR gate? Anybody can indicate? How many inputs will be there to this OR gate, second OR gate? How many inputs will be there in the OR gate? 256, no, but if there are 512 gates, the inputs will be 512 only. Now tell me, can you design and fabricate a OR gate of 512 inputs? What we discussed earlier was, 512 minus 1 or whatever. Yes, the maximal will be little less than 512, right? If you build around 0 or build around 1, your number of gates will be little less than 512 maximum. It's a maximum limit. What I'm writing here is, it's a maximum number of gates required. You have to choose at least one of the methods, either the build around 0 or build around 1. Your number of gates will never be greater than 511. That's a good answer, Hirani. Gaurav. But the problem is not that. Problem is feasibility. Can you design a 512 input OR gate? No. Then how will you realize that it is required? The realization will be in a kind of, you can say, I'm going to my board now. This is a serious issue, right? So it's a serious issue. I hope my board is visible to you. Is board visible?
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you. So if I take this board and to discuss that 512 input OR gate, this is certainly infeasible, no? So I will have to break it and realize it with what maximum I can do. So I can do maximum 8 inputs possibly, however hard I try. So I have an equivalent 8 inputs OR gates. Now can you redesign this? How many levels will be there? Now come up with a, so this will be a question in your quiz. If you solve it here, fine. If you don't solve it here, you have to solve it there. Now find the levels while using 8 input OR gate to realize 512 input OR gate. This is the question. How many levels will be there, or how many gates total will be there of 8 input? You have to use 8 input OR gate. As many as you like. As many as you like. So I'm going to board, not looking at your answers. How many layers will be there? Right, so you have to actually do some mathematics and generate a series. So if I have a number 512, the first level number of gates will be 512 divided by each gate has 8 inputs, right? Power of 2 will be better. 2 to the power 9, 2 to the power 3. So this will be 2 to the power 6 gates, first level. The second level gates will be 2 to the power 6 lines are there, outputs, divided by, again, 8 inputs, 2, 3. So what is that? How much is that? 2 to the power 3, right? Okay. So we are here now. You do computation in a rough. I'm just writing the numbers. So the number of gates here would be 2 to the power 6. So 2 to the power 6 outputs are there. The number of gates here would be divided by 2 over 3. 2 to the power 3. And then the number of gate required here will be 1 only. Because we require 2 cube by 2 cube is 1. So only 3 levels are there. the labels will be log of given number with what base input we have. Is that okay? So this will be 3. This is the computation. So the question may be asked to you, how many number of gates are there? So that's a geometric expression. The number of gates are 2 to the power 6 here, 2 to the power 3 here, and 1 here. So we just have a sum of a geometric expression and give the number. Right? So this would easily be whatever you want to say. How do you do it? Number of terms and the ratio. No, Rn minus 1, R minus 1, A. A is 1. The ratio is 2 to the power 3. And the number of terms are 3. I do it here. So R minus 1 is, ratio is 2 to the power minus 3. And 2 to the power 3, number of terms are 3 minus 1. Right? So you can find out what is the number. You can do it. I'm coming back to my slides. So the problem, an issue we have identified. The issue is the size of the gate, input size of the gate. It's always a problem. You have to break it, right? What we forgot to understand is, or what to appreciate is, our this 2-level logic is no more valid there. Now we have multi-levels. For input to output, we are passing through more than 2 levels of the gate. The level there was 3. 3 for this OR gate only, and 1 more here, 4 levels. So this already has become a multi-level logic. This is no more a 2-level logic. So your Quine-Netlesky is not applicable now for minimization, right? If it is applicable, it is only applicable locally. So you have now 2 issues. You can have apply 2-level logic optimization for n equal to 10 approximately, and above you have to find out some other ways for multi-level logic optimization, which we are not going to touch in this interaction. This may require about 3-4 more interactions, right? Let us do some very simple exercises. Now, can you minimize this? Let us say that n is less than 10, n is 4. So K-map can be used. Use it. You are given is the problem of this. How many of you find difficult to hang on this information to this K-map? Anybody want discussion on this? When a function f is given in expression form, how to convert to K-map? How many of you need help converting expression form of Boolean into K-map? I hope none. So you fill it up. I'm giving you help here. This is a template. It is applicable. You remember this template. And from this function, you choose those small squares corresponding to these integers and fill 1 there. I have done this here. So this is okay. So once I have made a K-map, how to minimize? What I'm doing, I'm trying to focus on one term and trying to find its neighbor. So it has 2 neighbors, left or right, right? So right side person have many more neighbors, so I don't take it. I take the deficient members. Members who are alone, we try to choose them first because we need to make them pair. If a person has more neighbors, he can pair up very easily. So that will be taken as a last effort, right? So I choose this. But I find that if I choose this as a 1 member, it has another pair here. So this is actually a quad, not pair. If you are experienced, you will directly choose this quad here. Any more answers? Yeah, there is a quad here. What else? Yeah, the corners actually are misnomers, mischiefs. These corners are not 4. These are just 1 point. You have to warp it. So these corners are actually 1 point. They meet at 1 point. Hence, we can combine all these also. These are all neighbors. All four are neighbors. Because they are merged to the single point, we have to warp this table. This table will warp into three-dimensional surface, and these 4 points will merge into a single point. Hence, I can take the fourth one also. I hope you understand. Anybody needs a clarification on that? Anybody needs clarification on that? No. Go ahead. K-map is done. So I'm now coming to the Quine-Matlowski. And what is required is, we'll apply the Quine-Matlowski for larger size problems. And we have identified that Quine-Matlowski method has two phases. In the first phase, we generate larger and larger terms. In phase 2, whatever larger terms we have gathered, we choose many less than or minimum number of those terms so that all minterms are covered. So this is a covering problem in phase 2. In the phase 1 is a generation problem, generation of implicants. An implicant is a larger size minterm. If you combine minterms, it becomes an implicant. A group of minterm is an implicant. So phase 1 is for generation of implicants. The second phase is the covering. I will quickly go through this to make you understand what I mean by implicant generation and the covering. Later on, for size equal to greater than 20, whatever Quine-Matlowski says, we will not exactly do all exploration. We will randomly do things, that's all. For phase 1, we will randomly select something. And covering also, we'll do some randomly selection for any problem of larger size. That is my conveyance today. So Quine-Matlowski per se is not applicable. These random selections are termed as a person's own choice. So they are called heuristic. So in Quine-Matlowski, we do exact way. All possible combinations are explored. But in heuristics, they are not explored because we do not have time and energy. This is the only stopping point today, right? Let us go to those points and stop. Let us take the Quine-Matlowski exact method for phase 1, phase 2, and later on find out how to do it random way, not take exact way, right? So what do we do in phase 1? Let us do it. If this is the function given to me, I have to generate the Quine-Matlowski first table. Can anybody indicate how to do it quickly? Somebody want to indicate what to do? Abhishek, I will take your question in the last. Please save your question. How will you make a table? First, I have to group the given minterms. So these are all minterms. These are all minterms, right? So I have to presume all these minterms and group them such a way that if it has 4 variables, each of these can be represented by 4 places of binary bits. How do you represent the 5? 0, 1, 0, 1. How many number of ones are there? 2. Fine. How do you represent, let us say 9? No? 9. 0, 0, 1. It also has a number of 2 ones. So I have to group 5 and 9 in together. It has 2 number of ones. So I have to count number of ones in each term in its Boolean equivalent representation and group them. So only 2 ones are there, so 5 and 9 are grouped. 7, it has 3 number of ones. 15, it has 4 number of ones. So I have to group them that way. So for 4 variables, how many rows will be there? How many rows will be there? So for 4 spaces, I can have no ones, 0 ones. So I have one group. I can have one place or 1 1, another group. 2 ones, another group. 3 ones, another group. 4 ones, another group. So I have 5 groups now. 0, 0, 0, 0 will come here. 1, 1, 1, 1 will come here. Only single terms will be there. And here the 1 will come, right? 2 will come. 4 will come. So on and so forth. Here some terms which contain 2 2s and 3 3 1s will come here, right? So I can do that. Step 1. Just see step 1. Step 1. So this is all number of zeros, number of 1s. Fine. So I have done that. Why I have done that? Because I have to pair the number of terms from this group with the number of terms in this group, any one of them, because they will always differ in one position. So K-map, if you remember, selecting neighbor means its neighbor differs only in one bit position. That's a neighbor. So this is another way of finding the neighbor. So all minterms here are neighbors. Each minterm is neighbor of each of minterm here. Only thing is you have to find out how they differ in what position. So if I choose 1 from here and 5 from here, I can pair them here. Because they differ in one position, it's second position. And hence I have done a don't care here. How many of you will find it difficult from going from this table to this table? Can I go ahead? Say yes or no. Can you go from table 1 to table 2? It is just a pairwise comparison between neighbors. The neighbors are groups. There are 5 rows in step 1. Table 1, 5 groups. Each group has members. First group has 1 member. Second group has 3 members, 2 members, 1 member. Then each group has to be compared with the earlier group and later group. Pair. So if I see the first group and second group, I will have to pair 3 pairs, and all of them can be chosen. 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 8. I have chosen them. If I compare this with the next one, I have 9 pairs. 1, 5, 1, 9, 1, 10. So 1, 5, 1, 9 and 1, 10 is not feasible or feasible. I don't know. Right? It's not feasible because they differ in more than 1 bit position. So you have to choose only from neighbor groups and pair them if they differ only in 1 bit position. That's all. And I hope you can do it. Right? Step 2. So now we have groups, and these groups will still be same. No ones, 1 1, 2 1s, 3 1s. Then again we repeat this same process here and reach to step 3. Right? The limit will be there. If it is a 4 variable function, the maximum size could be 3, which is a octet. Right? Octet means 4 minterms combined. So this is I think this is a quad actually, not a octet. So we have not reached to octet. We have reached to quad only, with 4 minterms combined. It could go to step 4 potentially. For this problem, we would have required step 4 maximum, so that a octet would be there. But there is no octet here. So this is what we have identified. We keep marking whether A covers what. So A covers 1 0 1 8 9. So 0 1 is covered. I mark it yes. I mark 8 9 also covered here. 0 8 also is covered here. 0 9 is also covered here. So I'll mark all those. They are covered. Fine, they're all covered. So I will take only those which are not marked tick. So there are 4 only now in the whole way. I will see the table 1 also, table 2 also, table 3 also, and pick only those terms which are not tick marked. All of them are tick marked here, all of them are tick marked here, and nothing is tick marked here. So I take the 4. This is phase 1. I have generated larger size terms. This is phase 1 over. Phase 1 over. Right. So phase 1 is over. Now what do you do in phase 2? Once phase 1 is over, I gather another table, which is called prime implicant table. right? So I will try to have a table where I will write A, B, C, D, which are the implicant from phase 1. And I will write all minterms which are given to me, M0, M1, which are taking part. I go back. These are my minterms, M0, M1, M2, M5, up to M15. I write them here, M0, M1, M2, M5, M7, up to M15. I write them here in the table. So this is M0 and lastly is M15. And I try to tick mark here. If A covers some terms, B covers some other terms, C and D cover some other terms, I mark tick mark. And I have this table ready. My choice is out of ABCD, I do not want to choose all 4. I want to choose only 3 of them or 2 of them, so that all of them are covering these minterms. This is called covering problem. Covering problem. Right? Covering problem. So if I take the previous problem, this is my prime implicant table. Are you okay? It is tilted 1. You can actually write ABCD here better. So A covers 9801. So I am marking tick mark here. You remember, you can go back to the previous table. B covers 2, 8, 10 and 0. I marked them. Right? Now my choice is I do not want to choose all 4. It's a larger representation. I still want more optimization. I want to choose only A, B or AC or AD or some less of them. So what is the process? I must identify whether A and B together cover all of them or A and C together cover all of them, right? You know this. What is the essential here? The essential is if any minterm, you identify any minterm which is covered by any one of them, right? I see no one is there. 13 is covered by C and D. Oh, 10th term. 10th term is covered only by B. And the second term is also covered by only B. Similarly, 15th term is covered by only D. And the 7th term also is covered by only D. So we have to choose B and D, because if you don't choose B, 10 will not be covered at all, or 2 will not be covered at all. So B has to be chosen, selected. D has to be chosen because 15 cannot be covered otherwise. So D also is chosen. Now there is no choice. B and D have to be chosen. But now B covers what? 8. So 8 is covered. B covers 0, covered. D covers 13, right? D covers 5 also. So they are all covered. What is left? Then you have to reduce this table now. Right? So if I choose B, I drop these crosses. If I choose D, I drop these terms. So I'm dropping the first row because D covers it. I drop the second row because D covers it. I am dropping the 10th row because B covers it. I'm dropping the 8th row because B is covering it, right? And then I'm dropping the 7th row because D is covering it. I'm dropping the 5th row because D is covering it. I'm dropping the second number because it is covered. I'm dropping the 0, it is covered by B. So how many of the terms I am left? 1 and 9, right? So my phase 2, step 1, I have chosen B and D, and the unsolved problem is this now. C and D are remaining and 1 and 9 to be chosen. 1 and 9 are not covered actually. So 1 is covered by whom? By C also, by C also, by D also. 9 is covered by whom? By A also and D also. So what to choose now? So I choose C or D, any one of them, because C will cover both of them, right? So my answer at step 2 will be choose B, D, and any one of the AB, the AC. I'm sorry, AC. choose any one of the AC, A or C. This is covering problem. Paper pencil way, it has taken me time and complexity. This need to be done on computer. So Quine-McCluskey phase 1 selection of implicants has to be implemented by computer. Quine-McCluskey, this second phase which we have done just now covering has to be done by computer. An exact way. If there is a best answer, it should be found. And if the table is too large, then some random selections and a approximate way also. So our focus is on approximate ways for larger problems, right? Okay. So this is the steps. You can read it at leisure time in your book. And another problem here. You want to try it? Quine-McCluskey phase 1. I'm trying here. There are 4 tables. Table A, table B, table C, table D. There are 4 tables. Prime implicant generation, and finally I have generated a term which is octet. 8 terms are there. Octet is generated, but the problem size is large. 4 size 4. Oh, it's a good problem. All of you see it. Phase 1. I have these unticked 3 and 3, 6, 7 and 8 terms. I'm getting 8 terms. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And I should go for their covering. The covering problem is more tough now. I have 8 implicants and all the minterms which are given. And I have to find out the essential one. So if you see, the one is covered only by H. So H is essential. 2 is covered by only G. So G is also essential. So all those which are covered by which rows. So all identify rows with one tick only. That will be essential row. Nobody else covers it. And then you can reduce the problem and solve it iteratively. This is phase 2. Phase 2. Right? We'll cover this covering problem exactly. Phase 2 cover. Phase 2 exactly and approximately. Right? Can I take 5 more minutes to close? And after lunch we'll meet. So I'm just taking one more problem, which is exact covering. Exact covering phase 2. How to do it in computer implementable way. Computer implementable way. Right? I'm skipping all these things. You can read them by yourself. So we are here. We'll start it up, not complete fully. We'll do it in the second phase when we come back after lunch. Fine. So what is the exact algorithm? Phase 2 is same covering problem. What is the covering problem? We had those implicants identified, generated in phase 1, and all the minterms are here. No, with tick marks. And you have to find out. Exact algorithm is nothing but taking the first column and deciding whether choosing this is beneficial or not choosing this is beneficial. That's all. So it's a binary decision on each column. So if I have to take a decision on column A, chosen or not chosen, for each of such decision on B, what will the decision? Chosen or not chosen? Chosen or not chosen? So how many options will be there for 4 columns? 16 options. So I have to explore all 16 options. Whether I choose A, I will go here, not choose A. Then I have to take decision on B, whether to choose B or not. If I choose B, I have to take decision on C, choose it or not. If I do not choose C, I have to take a decision on D, choose it or not choose it. So if you take this will be a binary tree. A to decide on B, right? So let me draw a binary tree here. Don't look at the slide content. I'm trying to draw a binary tree, that's all. So if I take decision on A not chosen, A chosen. And I have to take a decision on B, chosen, not chosen. Then I have to take a decision on C, chosen, not chosen. Then take a decision on D, chosen, not chosen. So at first level, only 1 vertex is there. Second level, 2 vertices. Third level, 4 vertices. No? And fourth level, 8 vertices. So number of vertices are power of 2. 2, 0 at the root, first level, 2 power 1, 2 power 2, 2 power 3. So leaf level will be answers, chosen or not chosen. So these each leaf level is a solution, because they will simplify whether A is chosen, B is not chosen, C is not chosen, D is not chosen. So this is a solution. But those solutions may be feasible or not infeasible. So out of these 16 solution, 2 to the power 4 solutions, I must evaluate each of them and find out whether that is a feasible solution or not feasible. Out of feasible solution, I should find out a solution where I choose the minimum number of implicants, A, B, C, D. Right? This is a binary tree, and I have to choose, descend down the binary tree and do it exactly. Do it exactly. It's called branch and bound. So if this is a phase 2 problem, it's a phase 2 matrix. It's an implicant matrix. So these are implicants, columns. The rows are minterms. Rows are minterms. And this matrix is given to us. Right? So each column covers one or more minterms. Right? I have to solve it exactly. For exact solution, I will have to take help of the branch and bound, and the information will be hanged on a binary tree. So first one chosen or not chosen, then along with those two, next result will be second chosen or not chosen, like that, right? This is the algorithm in a better way, right? I will stop here after I explain this algorithm. We will run it after lunch only. Don't bother. We'll stop here. Although we started little half an hour late, but anyway. So what I'm indicating here is the algorithm is very small actually. It has only one step here and one step here, which is recursion. So algorithm name is exact cover. For what? A matrix is given and a column is chosen. Which column? And B is a solution till now. Is that okay? So I start with a given matrix A. I reduce the matrix by finding essential columns and remove it. My A becomes smaller. If I have any essential columns chosen here, I will update my X. X is my decision. I'm going back. In this matrix, how many decisions I have to take? 5 decisions. So my X will be decision on A, decision on B, decision on C, decision on D, decision on E. 5 decisions. So X will be a vector. If I choose A, I will put Xa equal to 1. If I don't choose B, I will put 0 here. For choosing C, I will put here. For D, yes. E, no, this one. So X will have 32 possibilities. One of them is 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. Selection. First column chosen, third column chosen, fourth column chosen. So this is my X vector, which is a choice. I come back here. What I'm trying to see here is the X vector is updated. If there are any essential columns which are required for any row, I will choose them and update my vector X by writing ones on those places. The rest of the places undecided. So my A matrix will be reduced, right? If my X number of columns chosen, I will find out the X, how many number of ones are there. If the current estimate is higher than the previous best, I will say exit. Don't explore, return. This algorithm will not run further. But if my current estimate is better, that means exploring is good. Exploring means I have to choose any column, C column, out of this unknown column. I have to say I choose that column. So do this. Or if I don't choose that column, this is a decision. So it has only 2 parts. Choosing a column is here, not choosing a column is here. And if I choose that column, my matrix A will be updated. And I have to call this algorithm recursively again with a reduced size. And after decision on column. So unknown columns will be these columns now for this algorithm. If I don't choose that column, I still explore. Out of these two, I will get back few answers, and I will choose whether this algorithm has got a good value or a not a good value. So I will compare and choose the best one out of these two, and I will exit only from one of these places, not both the places, and go to the higher side, right? So this is the expanded version of what I discussed. This is a choosing a column and taking a decision, this one. The next one is not choosing a column and a decision. Will return only from one of them. So this B will be a return for only any of the three kind of solution. So if my current estimate is not good, I will not explore further. Return from here only, one. Or I choose a column, I get a value of B. Or if I don't choose a column, I get a value of B. Whichever one is better, I will return from here. So there are two returns from this algorithm. Without exploration is here, and with exploration in both ways. In both ways, right? In both ways, I will return from here. So you can run this on this example. We will do it after lunch, maybe at 1:15. We can meet at 1:15 and run this exact algorithm. But our target or objective today is find the approximate algorithm for phase 2 and approximate algorithm for phase 1 also. We will not use Cohen-Minkowski all tabular method exact way. No, we should have an approximate algorithm. They are called heuristics. Approximate algorithms are called heuristics. This would have been the objective in the morning. I am running little late. So I should say we'll cover this approximate for phase 2 very quickly in 10 minutes and maybe 10 more minutes phase 1 approximate, and then I will hand over to Amit. Half an hour I will require after lunch, and over to Amit for his another approximate method for FSM minimization. Amit will take that. See, these approximate methods are very important. So what I'm doing is approximate method for Cohen-Minkowski, phase 1, phase 2. Amit will take approximate method for sequential circuit optimization. All three are important because they will be implemented by a computer. Exact way also, computer will get lost too much, right? So we meet at 1:15 p.m. for half an hour with me and maybe little more with Amit, whatever it covers. All this information we are conveying to you very quickly is very important to be studied in detail later. By no means we promise that you will be able to get everything right now, but we are exposing you to the kind of algorithms which are required, right? And their sites are available already. They're uploaded yesterday only. So 1:30, okay. So time change. We meet at 1:30 p.m. Okay, time change. We meet at 1:30 p.m. I will engage for half an hour, not more than that, promise that way. And rest of our time, Amit. All of that information you will carry will be useful for your further research for system synthesis, automated CAD. The Synopsys and Cadence are companies. Are two good companies which generate the CAD tools, which design the CAD tools by using which we can design the chips, right? So you will be applicable or you will be candidate for those companies. Once you understand Mentor Graphic also is another company. And Xilinx is another company for FPGAs, FPGA synthesis algorithms, right? So I take lead here. Thank you. Some questions were there, Abhishek. If you still have question, you can raise it and we'll disperse in 2 minutes. Okay, no more questions. So thanks. Meet at 130.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.